A lot of people think that they can tell when a visual effect has been done digitally, but what they actually mean is that they can tell when a visual effect has been done badly. This is because a perfect visual effect is one that happens in a scene without you noticing it or questioning its authenticity. So with that in mind, here are a few visual effects that were so good you didn't even notice them. And if your VFX are highly noticeable for all the wrong reasons, then you should totally just click our link in the description and get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. It's the perfect place to learn some of the industry's finest tools, or even their free alternatives. For example, Blender is often highly overlooked, but is an insanely complete toolbox capable of high-end results in everything from rigging to lighting. I learned some of the basics with Remington and had quickly made a model of my own in no time. I now know how to animate and light the scene, and all for absolutely free. If you are one of the first 1,000 to click the link in the description, you too will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, where you can let your creativity run wild. Click the link and give Skillshare a try today. Honestly guys, you won't be disappointed. This 2006 film basically had two categories of VFX. First was digitally stitching together shots to make impossibly long shots, including a 9-minute long handheld camera shot that was composed of 6 different individual takes. And second was digitally adapting and enhancing environments to make them look like it was the year 2027. Double Negative did an incredible job on both, and they were definitely invisible enough to be included on this list. But the shot that we can't believe is CG is when the pregnant woman gives birth. Framestore created a 100% realistic human baby. Yes, the baby is 100% CG. This visual effect isn't just incredible because of how difficult it is to sculpt, rig, animate, texture, and color a photoreal CG baby, but the scene is also lit by a hurricane lamp, and the light had to be recreated in the digital space. It was filmed by a handheld camera, and that movement had to be motion tracked for the virtual camera in the digital space, and the shot is 3.5 minutes long, so there was nowhere to hide any imperfections. Spielberg's Jurassic Park is an almost perfect example of how balancing practical VFX with digital VFX can give you great results and withstand the tests of time. Now, nearly 20 years later, they still look remarkable considering how much VFX technology has progressed in that time period. If you watch the film with a critical eye, you can probably pick out which shots were done digitally, but a digital VFX shot that most people didn't notice happens when Lex falls through an air conditioning grate. Here, Lex's stunt double was supposed to fall through the hole, hold onto the edge and pull herself back up. She wasn't supposed to look back up at the camera during the shot. However, rather than resetting the stunt and reshooting the scene, they decided to digitally stitch the actor's face onto the stunt double's body. Fight Club had some amazing digital effects that almost went completely unnoticed, including the shot where Edward Norton's character shoots himself, which is the first realistic close-up and deformation of a CG human face ever done. To do it, they motion captured Norton getting blasted in the mouth with a 180 psi shot of air. The digital VFX shot that was missed by many was the sex scene between Tyler and Marla. This entire scene is almost 100% CG. Brad Pitt and Helena Bonham Carter were actually fully clothed in motion capture suits and shot using the bullet time technique from The Matrix. Their bodies were then replaced by photorealistic digital body doubles, another first for the industry. Les Miserables has the typical VFX you'd expect for a film that is set in France in the 1800s. Set extensions, CG environments, and the digital removal of anything that appeared on the shots that was too modern for that era. Double Negative did some impressive seamless work throughout the film, but they weren't the only company involved. In fact, several companies were needed to create the digital effect that went unnoticed. Les Miserables isn't just a period drama, it's also a musical, and this posed a problem for the director because he didn't want to have the actors lip sync to a pre-recorded vocal and orchestra track, so he had all the performers wear microphones and an earpiece through which they could hear an on-set pianist play the song. The digital VFX you didn't notice is the digital removal of every microphone and earpiece in every frame of every musical performance. Okay, so in a film like Avengers Endgame, you'd expect there to be a lot of visual effects. Thousands and thousands of shots, so many that you just assume every effect is CGI. But one effect that you probably thought was real but was actually CG was the quantum suits. The quantum suits are supposed to be a combination of Iron Man's, Ant-Man's, and Guardian's tech, and so they had to nano on and nano off in a similar way to how Tony Stark's suits did. And this visual effect, although cleverly done, obviously had to be CG. However, due to the tight schedule, by the time they had decided on the final look for the quantum suit, principal photography had already finished. This meant that the costume department didn't have time to develop, fit, and make a different costume for each of the hero characters, so they decided to do it digitally. Yes, every quantum suit on every character is entirely CG. Did you know the lightning shooting out from Shazam's hands wasn't real lightning? Okay, just kidding. Shazam had some pretty obvious CGI, but not obvious because it was bad, but obvious because the only way it could have been achieved was by using CGI. The shot that you may not know was done digitally was the Rocky Steps shot in Philadelphia. Due to problems obtaining permissions and permits, this shot was actually filmed months after the original photography, on a very wet and foggy day. So foggy that the Philadelphia skyline couldn't even be seen. Digital Domain had to replace the entire background digitally, including Ben Franklin Parkway and the skyline. They created all the tree lines in 3D and added moving cars and people walking in the background to make the effect so convincing that no one ever noticed. Digital Domain dealt with most of the VFX in this 2007 film about the Zodiac Killer from the late 60s. In addition to the CG blood and stains, several establishing shots of the Bay Area from the 1970s, helicopter shots, the San Francisco waterfront, and a time-lapse sequence of the construction of the Trans-America Pyramid, Digital Domain also created a shot that was as resolvable as it was invisible. The director wanted to film as much of the movie as possible in the locations where the events originally occurred. Unfortunately, the people in the neighborhood where the cab driver Paul Stein was killed didn't want the scene to be recreated there, and the actual neighborhood itself had changed rather drastically over the years. To overcome this problem, they shot on a blue screen stage. Digital Domain took photographs with high-resolution digital cameras for every angle of the neighborhood, and the production designer gave them detailed drawings of how it looked in 1969, and from this they built a CG neighborhood complete with vintage squad cars, fire trucks, streetlights, and police motorcycles. Be sure to click the Skillshare link in the description where you can learn how to use any of the industry's tools used to make the movies featured in today's video. Please give us a like if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget the links to the music used in this video are in the video description, and let us know in the comments below if you noticed any of these VFX.